Who was the best 49ers player of the 2010s, the entire decade?
So normally I would go with like greatness of your tenure, go with the guy who's been fantastic for the more amount of time. I probably would have said Joe Staley, but I'm not going to say Joe Staley. I'm going to say the guy who's was said to be a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer, and he was great when he was on the field. I love that I'm building this up, by the way, letting you guys think. And Aldon Smith, I think he was the greatest from that 2010 team because there was no player like him in the NFL as far as coming off the edge. He had that big game against the Pittsburgh Steelers where he sacked Ben Roethlisberger so many times. He shut off the power, and they had to wait to turn it back on. He was just fantastic. Grant said he's probably better than Bosa, what he saw, and in a recent podcast with Joe Staley admitted to the same thing. So I'm going with Aldon Smith. It's just unfortunate that it was a smaller sample size.
Staley said that about Aldon Smith?
Aldon Smith was better than Nick Bosa.
You what? Maverick.
I would say Patrick Willis is number one in my opinion, but he did have his three best seasons, I believe, were 07 through 09. So if I'm picking one player for the entire decade, I'm leaning towards Navarro Bowman, just because I think he has the most iconic play of the decade. Is the pick at the stick. And then here's 671 tackles, 43 TFLs, 9 forced fumbles, and he was the leader of a lot of those defenses, Patrick Willis and Bowman. And also, didn't Bowman have the game-winning play to send them to the Super Bowl against the Falcons as well?
He certainly did. Pass breakup Roddy White.
Yeah, I would go Bowman, but I understand that Staley and Patrick Willis are probably 1 and 2, but I lean toward Bowman.
Okay, fair enough. Look, the reason I'm not going to go with Willis and Bowman is the way I look at Bowman is he had 3 great years, maybe 4. Willis had 7, but 3 or 4 of them were in the other decade. Frank Gore was great, might have been Mr. 49er of the previous decade. You could argue he was Mr. 49er of the 2000s. But when I think Mr. 49er of the 2010s, it's Joe Staley. He was great every single year of the decade, from 2011 to 2019. Maybe he doesn't have a signature moment. He doesn't have stats. He's the best left tackle in franchise history. I think somehow he's even a little underrated in 49ers franchise lore. He's Mr. 49er from the 2010s, and that's nothing against Bowman, Gore, Willis, any of these guys, because they have legitimate cases too. I think longevity. Maybe it's just the fact that Staley was he's the only guy who played the entire decade with the team. So it has to be him, in my opinion. Yeah, the other guys make a point too.
Like I said, I think that was kind of the consensus. I just wanted to go with something off script, and I looked up Aldon Smith had.
No, I like it.
Sacks in 43 games.
It's a good call. It shouldn't be Nick Bosa. Might be Jamar Taylor. Hard to say.
He came 2020, so he's going to be icon of the 20s.
Can I give my most underrated of the decade?
Yes.
Okay, well, so a lot of people say Justin Smith, but this is like not even close to being the best of the decade. I'm just saying, guy that was underappreciated his whole career is Isaac Sopoaga. I think he owned that run defense, and I'm not even saying top 20 of the decade, but I think he was just an important player during that era, and I just wanted to give him a shout out because I was looking at his stats, and he didn't even have that many tackles, but it felt like he was always one of the better players on defense.
Good call. Another underrated player from the 2010s 49ers, Ahmad Brooks. He was on a bunch of different teams. He was always solid to solid plus. And if I remember correctly, he had like a stretch in the 2013 playoffs when he went freaking crazy, right? He had like 6 sacks in 3 games or something like that.
He jumped over and got Cam Newton on that one, right? That was that year?
Ahmad Brooks. Ahmad Brooks was as talented as any player on that team. And he was crazy. And I like that.